Brothers, look. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He protected them.
The mountains of Ashenvale had not trembled in 40 years. Not since the last war, when men and dragons carved the sky with fire and steel, leaving rivers red and forests ash. Peace had been a fragile thing after that, thin as spider silk stretched over a canyon, held together not by trust, but by exhaustion. Both sides had bled enough. Both sides had buried enough. But tonight, the mountains trembled again. The Red Pack moved through the high passes like a storm given flesh. 7 of them, ancient, scarred, wingspans wide enough to blot out moons. Their scales were the deep crimson of old blood, their eyes amber lanterns burning with fury older than most human kingdoms. Varric led them, the eldest, the one they called the Ashclaw. His left horn was broken halfway, snapped off in a battle he refused to name. He carried that wound like a badge, like a promise. 3 hatchlings were missing from the nest. 3. The clan mothers had screamed it into the storm 2 nights ago, their voices shaking the stone walls of the Ember Caverns. 3 young ones, barely old enough to spread their wings, small as house cats, curious as sparrows, had wandered from the protected hollow while the adults hunted. The trail of tiny claw marks led down the mountain, into the valley, into human territory. No one in the pack said it aloud, but everyone thought it. Humans take what doesn't belong to them. Humans always take. Varric had given the valley settlement one chance, a warning screech that should have sent them fleeing, should have produced trembling men at the mountain's foot with 3 live hatchlings in offering. Instead, silence. Smoke from chimneys. The lazy sound of a distant river. No response. So the pack came. They descended through cloud cover, silent for creatures their size, disciplined by decades of coordinated hunts. Varric's signal claw cut through the air, spread, encircle, do not burn until I give word, and the 7 split like dark lightning across the valley's rim. The human settlement below was small. A ranger's outpost, maybe. A handful of stone buildings, a stable, a watchtower with no one in it. Varric's nostrils flared. He caught the scent of iron, of pine smoke, of dried herbs, and beneath all of it, threaded through like a golden wire, hatchlings. Alive. Close. He landed on the outpost's southern wall, stone cracking under his weight, and folded his wings with the slow deliberateness of a predator who knows it has already won. The others perched at the edges, circling in slow, tight patterns overhead. Varric dropped into the main courtyard, claws sparking against cobblestone, and moved toward the largest building, a long, low structure with a wide wooden door left slightly ajar. He pushed it open. The hinges screamed. The door swung wide. And Varric stopped. Inside, stretched across a rough wooden floor beside a dying hearth, lay a human. A man, broad-shouldered, bearded, dressed in a ranger's worn leather coat. He was on his side, one arm extended, his eyes closed in deep, rhythmic sleep. There was a wool blanket tangled around his legs that he had clearly kicked off sometime in the night. And curled against his chest, nestled in the crook of his arm, pressed against the warmth of him like 3 copper-scaled stones come to life. The hatchlings. All 3. Sleeping. The smallest one, the one the clan mothers called Embertip for the unusual orange blush on her snout, was tucked under the man's chin, rising and falling with his breath. The second, the bolder one they called Crix, had sprawled across the man's shoulder with the boneless confidence of the very young, one tiny wing draped over the man's ear. The third, the quiet one, the one who had never been given a name because she hadn't chosen one yet, had burrowed against the man's ribs and was making the soft clicking sound that hatchlings made only in deep, safe sleep. Varric did not move. He stood in the doorway, filling it completely, and stared. Behind him, he heard the others landing, one by one, drawn by his stillness. Riva, the second elder, appeared at his shoulder. She looked in. Her breath caught. Sorek, the youngest of the pack adults, craned his long neck around the doorframe and made a sound, something between a growl and a whimper that he would later deny. On the floor, the man slept on. There were clues if you knew how to read them. An overturned water bowl, improvised, a cooking pot, near the hearth, still damp. A plate with scraps of smoked meat. A second, smaller blanket that had been folded and placed beneath the hatchlings, buffering them from the cold stone. Near the man's outstretched hand, a small carved figure. A dragon, rough cut from a piece of pine, clearly made quickly, the kind of thing you made to entertain a curious creature that wouldn't stop staring at your hands. He had found them. He had fed them. He had built them a small bed within his own sleeping space. He had carved them a toy. And then he had fallen asleep, because humans needed sleep, and the hatchlings had simply climbed onto him and decided he was warm enough. Varric stepped inside. His claw touched the floor gently, deliberately, producing only the softest scrape. The hatchlings didn't stir. The man's brow furrowed slightly in his sleep, some animal instinct registering presence, but he didn't wake. Varric crouched. A dragon his size crouching was a remarkable thing to witness, like a mountain deciding to bow, and brought his enormous head level with the sleeping group. Embertip's eyes fluttered open. She looked at Varric. She looked at the sleeping man. She tucked herself more firmly under his chin and closed her eyes again. That was all. Varric straightened slowly. He turned to look at Riva. She was watching the man's face with an expression that had no dragon word, something that sat between shame and wonder and the particular ache of being wrong about something you had been certain of for a very long time. Sorek was the one who finally whispered it, low enough that only dragon ears could catch it. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He just kept them warm. Varric said nothing. He stepped back through the doorway. He looked up at the cold stars above Ashenvale, at the valley that had answered his warning with silence, not out of arrogance, but because there had been no threat here worth responding to. He raised one great claw and made the signal, the old signal, older than the war, older than the broken peace.
Stand down.
No harm here. One by one, the red pack settled on rooftops and walls and earth, folding their wings, lowering their heads, waiting for morning, waiting to see what a man who kept hatchlings warm through the night would look like when he opened his eyes and found 7 ancient dragons sitting in his courtyard. Varric suspected he would scream. He was prepared to find that somewhat forgivable,